I walked into the office after my 3-day regional meeting, feeling lighter than I had in months. The quarterly numbers were excellent, our project deadlines had all been met, and I had even managed to secure additional budget for team training. The moment I stepped off the elevator, something felt wrong. The usual Monday morning buzz was missing from our department floor. The East Wing corridor where my team of 7 brilliant engineers worked was eerily quiet. "Nora," I called out, looking for our lead developer, who was always first to arrive. No answer. Our workspace, the one we had earned after delivering 3 consecutive breakthrough projects, stood empty. The desks were cleared, monitors were gone, and even the potted plants we had nurtured were missing. Only rectangular dust outlines remained where our equipment had been. I spotted Preston from accounting walking past. I asked him what happened to my team. He looked at me with pity and told me to check the basement, because they had moved them yesterday. The basement was not even an official office space. The elevator ride down felt eternal, and each passing floor heightened my dread. When the doors opened, I had to navigate through storage areas and maintenance rooms before finding a door with a hastily printed sign that read Engineering Team B. I pushed it open to find my team huddled between exposed pipes and utility boxes. Their monitors were balanced precariously on folding tables, and extension cords snaked across the concrete floor. Water dripped from a ceiling pipe, landing with rhythmic plunks into a bucket near Nora Geller's makeshift desk. I asked what had happened, though their downcast faces told me everything. Nora looked up, her eyes burning with humiliation. She explained that while I was gone, Oliver Croft came down with movers and told them they needed to relocate immediately to make room for the new specialist. They had only 30 minutes to pack everything they owned. I went back upstairs to our former workspace. It was bright, airy, and strategically positioned between the testing lab and the design team. Now it housed a single person, a young man arranging framed certificates on what used to be my desk, while Oliver Croft, our department head of 5 months, hovered nearby with an expression of unbridled admiration. Croft welcomed me and introduced Trent, our new productivity transformation specialist. He claimed Trent's revolutionary approach had increased output by 300% at his last 3 companies, and he needed proper space to implement his vision. He lowered his voice, saying my team could manage downstairs until next quarter's budget review. I stared at Trent, who did not even pause his decorating to acknowledge me. I nodded silently and returned to the basement where my team waited. The distant hum of industrial machinery vibrated through the walls, and the wireless signal barely reached their desks. The nearest bathroom was a single toilet behind a shower curtain. The air smelled of mildew and defeat. Bernard, our hardware specialist who had been with the company for 32 years, muttered that this was how they treated loyalty. I surveyed their dejected faces. These were people who had given everything to this company, now stuffed in a basement like unwanted furniture. Then I smiled calmly. I told them to pack their bags. I did not mean just for the basement. I meant everything. They stared at me, confused but trusting. I held their gaze, my smile never wavering. I told them to trust me, to start quietly gathering everything they might want to take with them someday, and to keep this conversation strictly between us. Until that basement moment, I had been the loyal, dependable leader of Engineering Team B for 8 years. Before joining the company, I had spent 15 years coordinating refugee camp logistics during humanitarian crises across 3 continents. The company had hired me for my technical knowledge, unaware that I had spent those years building global industry relationships, while setting up supply chains in impossible conditions. I was not just good at solving technical problems. I excelled at solving human ones. Each member of my team had been handpicked not just for their technical brilliance, but for their ability to solve problems under extreme pressure. Nora Geller, our lead developer, had been rejected by 3 other companies because of her unfiltered communication style before I recognized her genius with complex systems. Toby, fresh out of college, but with a natural talent for finding elegant solutions, had been passed over for higher-profile graduates. Bernard had been ready to retire when I convinced him his hardware expertise was irreplaceable. Then there was Simon, our quietest member who spoke 5 programming languages but struggled with human ones. Keith, whose testing protocols had become the industry standard, Ian, whose security systems were impenetrable, and Neil, who could translate technical requirements into language anyone could understand. For 8 years, we delivered consistently excellent results without fanfare. We were not the flashiest team, but executives knew we were the ones to call when they needed something impossible done reliably. 6 months earlier, our longtime department head retired, and Oliver Croft arrived with grand ambitions but zero understanding of our work. From day one, he had been hunting for a game changer to impress executives, ignoring our consistent results in favor of flashy innovations. His golden hire, Trent, had dazzled him with buzzword-filled presentations and promises of revolutionary methods. What Croft never investigated was why someone with such transformative skills changed jobs 3 times in 2 years. For 2 weeks after the basement relocation, we worked from our exile. The conditions were abysmal. The temperature fluctuated wildly, the lighting gave everyone headaches, and twice we had to cover equipment during overhead pipe leaks. Yet my team followed my quiet instructions. We archived projects, organized knowledge bases, and created transition guides, while continuing our assigned tasks without complaint. I do not understand why we are documenting everything so meticulously, Simon whispered one afternoon as he adjusted an old desk lamp. It is not like they appreciate our work anyway. He looked tired, his eyes bloodshot from the flickering fluorescent bulb overhead. Everything we do should be done with integrity, I replied, speaking loud enough for everyone in the small room to hear. We do not lower our standards just because someone else lost theirs. No matter where we do it, our work remains our signature. The others exchanged glances, but the tension in the room seemed to ease a fraction. Bernard went back to organizing his hardware blueprints, and Nora began tagging the latest code repository. They trusted me, even if they did not understand my strategy. To keep spirits up, Bernard even managed to rig a cooling fan from spare parts to keep our makeshift server rack from overheating in the damp air. Toby spent his afternoon writing script libraries to automate our testing cycles. We were building a legacy, even in exile. Then came a surprising call from Helena Thorne, the chief executive officer. The call came late on a Tuesday evening, her voice crisp and professional over the line. She was known for her directness, never wasting a word on pleasantries, but there was a subtle undertone of urgency that she could not entirely hide. She requested that I present our team's accomplishments at the upcoming board meeting. When I shared the news, my team's spirits lifted. Finally, we were getting the recognition we deserved, and a chance to show the executives that we were the backbone of the department. The morning of the presentation, I dressed in my best charcoal suit and carefully reviewed my slides in the basement's dim light. As I climbed the stairs to the executive floor, Oliver Croft intercepted me in the stairwell. I could hear the faint murmur of executive conversations from the corridor above. Croft stood on the landing, looking down at me with his arms crossed, a posture meant to project authority, but only succeeding in showing his insecurity. "Change of plans," he smirked, blocking my path with an insufferable grin. "The board wants to hear about future innovations, not past performance. Trent will present instead, but the chief executive officer specifically requested our team," I argued, holding my ground. Croft's smile was cold and dismissive. "I spoke with her this morning," he said. "She agrees my approach makes more sense. The board needs to hear about where we are going, not where we have been. You can go back to your workspace in the basement." My team deflated when I returned with the news. Our youngest member, Toby, glanced at his half-written resignation letter visible on his screen. "So this is it?" he asked. His voice cracked with frustration. "We are just giving up and letting them walk all over us." "Not yet," I replied, keeping my voice steady and calm. "Keep packing quietly, let them make their move." Later that day, word spread through the company grapevine that Trent's presentation had bombed spectacularly. Board members had asked deep technical questions about system scalability and database replication that he could not answer. He had stumbled, sweated, and offered vague buzzwords that only exposed his shallow understanding of our core business. Croft attempted immediate damage control by promising the board that our team would implement Trent's concepts, blaming our apparent reluctance to embrace change for the lack of progress. That afternoon, Croft visited our basement, suddenly friendly and eager to please. "Good news," he said, rubbing his hands together. "We are considering moving you back upstairs to the East Wing." The East Wing was slightly better than the basement, but it was still a clear demotion from our original space. The message was clear. We were still considered less valuable than the Golden Hire. "Thank you for recognizing our value," I said, surprising my team who expected me to reject the offer. Hope flickered in their eyes again. That evening, Toby admitted he had torn up his resignation letter, thinking things might improve if we moved back upstairs. I merely nodded, saying nothing to confirm or deny his optimism. 2 days later, I invited an old colleague to tour our facility. As we walked through the departments, I deliberately timed our arrival at the executive floor for when I knew Croft would be showing Trent around to potential clients. Julian Croft called out too loudly and too friendly when he spotted us. Perfect timing. "Come meet the Grayscale Solutions executive team. They are interested in Trent's productivity system." I approached with my visitor in tow, introducing her as my colleague Vivian Brooks. Croft eagerly introduced Vivian to Trent, who launched into his rehearsed transformation speech, gesturing grandly. "It is a fascinating approach," Vivian said when Trent finished. "You have used this successfully elsewhere, I presume?" Trent smiled confidently. "Absolutely," he replied. "My methods boosted efficiency dramatically at my previous companies. Northwest Technologies saw a 300% productivity increase in just 1 quarter." "Strange," Vivian replied, her voice cool and measured. "I sit on the board of Northwest Technologies. We never recorded such improvements. In fact, we noted significant project delays during your tenure there, which led to the termination of the contract." The conference room went completely silent. Trent's confident smile faltered, and his face flushed red as he began to sweat under the collar. "There must be some confusion," Croft began, stepping in to salvage the situation. "There is no confusion," I interjected. "Vivian is here because I accepted her job offer yesterday. I am bringing my team to establish a new engineering division at her company, and we start next Monday." The Grayscale executives shifted uncomfortably in their seats, while Trent's confident smile vanished completely. "You cannot take your team," Croft sputtered, his face turning a deep shade of red. "That is poaching, and it is highly unethical. But it is completely legal," I finished for him, keeping my voice calm. "Check our contracts. There are no non-compete clauses in our agreements. You relocated us to a basement with leaking pipes, while focusing all resources on unproven methods. Vivian is offering us double our current salaries and proper working conditions." Croft looked panicked. "The board will never approve this," he warned, pointing an angry finger at me. "The board approved it yesterday," Vivian added, "after reviewing your division's performance metrics against industry standards." Croft's face cycled through shock, anger, and fear in rapid succession. He reached for his phone to call the board chair, but his hands shook so badly he nearly dropped it. He got voicemail, which only deepened his panic. The Grayscale executives began gathering their folders, making polite excuses to leave. They did not want to be caught in the middle of a corporate disaster. Trent tried to defend himself, stammering about industry standards and modern innovation models, but his voice trailed off as the executives ignored him and walked out the door. "Wait," Croft's voice cracked slightly. "The East Wing renovation starts tomorrow, and I will match their salary offers." I looked at him with the same calm smile I had worn since finding my team in the basement. "It is too late," I said. The executives from Grayscale filed out, followed by Vivian, who said she would wait for me in the lobby. When only Croft, Trent, and I remained in the room, Croft turned on me. "Do you have any idea what you have done?" he hissed. "I have secured my team's future," I replied. "Something you failed to do." "You have destroyed mine," he said, his voice breaking. "The board was already questioning Trent's hiring, and if your entire team leaves, they will blame me." "You chose him over us," I said simply. "Actions have consequences." As I turned to leave, Croft grabbed my arm. "Please, I made a mistake," he pleaded. "What will it take for you to stay?" I looked at his hand until he released me. "You know what is interesting about my refugee camp work," I said quietly. "I learned that true character reveals itself, not when things are going well, but in how people treat others when resources are scarce. You showed us exactly who you are when you put us in that basement." I walked out, leaving Croft standing there with his golden hire. What I did not tell him was that my plan had been in motion long before the basement incident, and that what he had just witnessed was only the beginning. The basement was just the final catalyst. For months, I had been documenting Croft's mismanagement and compiling evidence of a far more serious issue. While reviewing the code repository logs, I had discovered that Trent was attempting to register our team's proprietary predictive scheduling algorithm as his own invention. This algorithm represented years of research and developmental costs funded by the division, and siphoning it was a direct threat to the company's competitive edge. Croft had hoped that licensing it secretly would net him a massive payout and secure his promotion, completely ignoring the legal disaster he was creating. This algorithm was protected by patent applications co-authored by the company and myself. Trent had gone so far as to submit an intellectual property assignment release form to the internal registry, purporting to show that I had signed over my rights, but the signature on that document was a clumsy forgery. I had spent the previous weekend auditing the version control logs and electronic registries, discovering that the digital certificate used to sign the form was created from a temporary address assigned to Trent's laptop on a Sunday night. When the office was closed, I had spent hours carefully matching the digital certificate serial numbers and the public key infrastructure logs. The cryptographic fingerprint on the forged release form did not match my official company key. Instead, it corresponded to a temporary certificate generated by the administrative account that Trent had accessed during his weekend intrusion. Under California Penal Code Section 470, forgery is a serious criminal offense, which rendered the entire assignment document void ab initio, meaning it had no legal effect from the very beginning. This forgery meant the company did not own the exclusive rights they were trying to license. Additionally, Trent's attempts to license this software to Grayscale Solutions constituted direct patent infringement under Title 35, United States Code, Section 271, because he lacked authorization from the rightful patent holders. A director's fiduciary duty is the highest standard of care implied by law, requiring absolute loyalty and honest dealing. Croft's secret negotiations with Grayscale Solutions to license our core technology in exchange for personal financial kickbacks was a textbook violation of this duty, exposing him to severe personal liability and damages in a shareholder derivative suit. I had also documented how Croft had facilitated this theft, violating his fiduciary duty of loyalty to the corporation by siphoning proprietary technology to secure personal kickbacks from Grayscale. I had sent a complete file of these violations to Helena Thorne and our legal counsel 2 days prior. I knew that the legal implications would force the company's hand, leaving Croft and Trent completely exposed to both civil and criminal liabilities. Back in the basement, my team waited anxiously for my return. When I walked through the door, their expressions ranged from hopeful to terrified. "Well," Nora asked, unable to contain herself any longer. I closed the door behind me and surveyed the room, checking the hallway to ensure we were not overheard. "It is done," I said. "Vivian has offered us all positions. We will receive double our current salaries, proper equipment, and a real office with windows that look out over the park." The silence that followed was deafening, and then Toby let out a loud cheer that echoed off the concrete walls. "Are you serious?" Bernard asked, his weathered face struggling between disbelief and hope. He smiled, mentioning how he had been worried his wife would have to cut back on their retirement plans. "Completely," I confirmed. "The contracts are being finalized as we speak, and we start next Monday." The celebration that followed was quiet, but deeply emotional. Hugs were exchanged, and tears were wiped away discreetly. These were not just colleagues. They had become family through late nights, impossible deadlines, and shared successes. "I knew you would not leave us in this basement forever," Nora said, squeezing my hand. "But how did you pull this off so quickly?" I hesitated, then decided to share a portion of the truth. "It was not quick," I explained. "I have been laying the groundwork for months." Their faces registered confusion. "Months?" Ian asked. "But the basement relocation only happened 2 weeks ago." I sat on the edge of a folding table. "The basement was just the final straw," I said. "I saw where things were heading the day Croft arrived and started talking about fresh perspectives while ignoring our track record. I started documenting everything: our contributions, Croft's dismissals, and the project's successes for which he took credit. I reached out to old contacts, including Vivian, just to reconnect. Simon, always the most perceptive despite his quiet nature, studied my face. "There is more to this than just finding us new jobs, is there not?" he asked. "Let us focus on the transition for now," I said carefully. "We have 1 week to wrap things up properly. No loose ends and no unfinished projects. We leave with our professional reputations intact. To achieve this, I assigned specific tasks. Nora Geller compiled the application integration interfaces, while Simon cataloged the database schemas and indexes. Keith cleaned up the automated integration test suites to ensure they ran perfectly. Ian audited the security logs, and Neil spent his days writing detailed end-user administration guides. Simon's database documentation was particularly critical, mapping out every primary key, index, and relational table to prevent any data corruption during future updates. Keith's automated test suites were designed to run continuously on the integration server, validating that the build remained stable even after our departure. We knew that the next few days would be critical, and we had to be completely above reproach. Every transition guide had to be crystal clear so that no one could accuse us of sabotage. We wanted our departure to be a masterclass in professionalism. "What about Croft?" Nora asked, a dangerous edge to her voice. "Does he know we are leaving?" "He does," I confirmed, "and he is panicking. The board was already questioning Trent's hiring and the resources allocated to him. Losing an entire specialized team in one stroke is going to raise serious concerns about Croft's leadership." "What is our strategy for the next week?" Keith asked. "We work professionally, thoroughly, and without complaint," I said. "We document everything meticulously and prepare transition guides for our replacements." "Why?" Toby asked. "Why help them after how they treated us?" "Because this is not about them," I explained. "It is about us and who we are. The best revenge is not what you do to others, it is what you build for yourself." "There is something else you should know," I added. "Vivian is creating an entirely new division with us as the core team. We will have the autonomy to build something from the ground up." This shifted the mood to genuine excitement. Even Bernard, who had been contemplating retirement before the basement incident, straightened with newfound energy. "Let us finish our work here so we can start our real work there," he said. For the next 3 days, we operated with mechanical precision. Every line of code was commented, and every system was mapped. On the 4th day, Croft appeared in our basement looking haggard. He was pacing in the narrow space between the server rack and Nora's desk, his hands clasped behind his back. The arrogance that had defined his first 5 months was entirely gone, replaced by the raw panic of a manager who realized he was about to lose the only team that made his department look competent. "Thea, can we talk privately?" he asked, his voice lacking confidence. I glanced at my team. "Anything you need to say can be said here," I replied. He shifted uncomfortably, offering a 15% raise and a move back upstairs. I looked at his expensive silk tie, realizing he only cared about his bonuses, not the people who did the work. I reminded him we had signed contracts. He pleaded, saying the board meeting was on Friday, and this would destroy his career. "You chose Trent's empty promises over our results," I told him. "Now you have to live with that choice." That evening my phone rang. It was Helena Thorne, the chief executive officer, requesting a private meeting the next morning at 9. Helena Thorne's office occupied the corner of the top floor, with glass walls offering a panoramic view of the city. She sat behind a minimalist desk and gestured to the chair across from her desk. "Julian," she said, her tone unreadable. "I appreciate you coming." "Of course," I replied. She studied me for a moment, then explained she had reviewed our team's contributions over the past 5 years and was impressed. She wondered why we were all leaving simultaneously, noting the basement relocation seemed insufficient as an explanation. "It was what the basement represented," I explained. "It was the physical manifestation of how the company viewed our worth." Thorne leaned back, asking if I thought she shared that view. "You approved Trent's hiring and resources despite no proven track record," I said. "So yes, I assumed you endorsed Croft's approach." To my surprise, she laughed. "Croft convinced the board, not me," she said. I was outvoted by the old guard, who were infatuated with Trent's resume. Now I get to say I told you so, but losing your team is too high a price. She slid a folder across the desk containing an exceptional offer. We would report directly to her, with complete autonomy, resources, and compensation that reflected our true value. I felt my resolve waver. This was everything we deserved, but I wondered why she was offering it now. Politics, she said simply. The board wanted to give Croft a chance. I couldn't undermine him openly, but this situation changes things. You are using our resignation to consolidate power, I observed. She did not deny it, calling it a mutual benefit. I told her I needed to discuss this with my team and would provide an answer by the end of the day. Back in the basement, I held the folder and explained the offer. The conversation that followed was the most honest we had ever had. Fears and hopes were voiced. Ian was skeptical, while Keith noted we would not have to start over. Toby was concerned about our word to Vivian. I reminded them our contracts had exit clauses, so legally we could accept Thorne's offer. Simon asked what I thought. I took a deep breath. I proposed that we split up strategically. 4 of us would accept Thorne's offer to stay, while 3 would go with Vivian to Northwest Technologies. We would maintain our connections, share information, and collaborate on select projects. This way, neither company could ever take us for granted again, and we would have double the industry footprint. The team was stunned, then delighted by the brilliance of the strategy. Bernard agreed that a split was the most logical path. I made the calls to Thorne and Vivian, and both agreed to the split approach. The next morning at 9, my team and I entered the boardroom for the critical meeting. Croft and Trent were there, looking anxious, along with the full board and Vivian Brooks, who had been invited as an advisor. Croft stood and presented his restructuring plan, glossing over our basement relocation. Thorne interrupted, asking him to elaborate, then turned to me. I stood and explained that we were presenting a factual analysis of the department's performance. My team distributed the prepared documents. Several older board members read page 12, murmuring in concern. I pointed the board to the evidence showing Trent had attempted to register our proprietary scheduling algorithm using a forged signature. Under California Penal Code Section 470, this forgery rendered the assignment document void ab initio. Additionally, any attempt by the company or Grayscale Solutions to license or use this technology would constitute patent infringement under Title 35, United States Code, Section 271. I made sure to outline the exact financial penalties associated with willful infringement, which could triple the damages awarded in court. I also presented the background checks showing Trent's history of project failures and legal issues. The room went silent. Trent sank into his chair and Croft looked ashen. The board chair, a senior director named Gordon, leaned forward and put his hands flat on the mahogany table. He looked at Croft with an expression of cold fury that made the department head visibly shrink. The board chair demanded that the corporate legal counsel verify my claims immediately. The company's chief legal counsel, a sharp attorney who had represented the corporation in major intellectual property disputes, carefully reviewed the cryptographic logs I had provided. After a brief phone call to our external security auditors, he turned to the board chair and nodded slowly, confirming that the digital signature was indeed invalid and forged. The board members looked at each other in disbelief, realizing the massive legal bullet they had just dodged. If we had not spoken up, they would have walked straight into a multi-million-dollar lawsuit and a criminal investigation. The counsel nodded, confirming that if the signature was forged, the company faced severe civil liability and could not license the product. The board chair thanked me, then asked Croft and Trent to leave the room. 3 hours later, the board approved our split proposal. Croft and Trent were summarily terminated, and I was offered the position of director, which I accepted on a part-time consulting basis for both companies. 6 months later, our collaborative model had become a massive success, increasing innovation and raising stock prices for both firms. Our team members occupied beautiful offices, and we had built a system where what Croft did to us could never happen to anyone else again.